Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm David Price.
And David, this week, what are we going to be doing on Hi-Fi Riff?
It's streamer time.
Yay! We haven't done a streamer for ages.
No, and no one talks about
No
streamers.
one ever
They're
talks
such
about streamers.
an endangered species. So
It's the truth. It really is.
the Cambridge Audio CXN V2, which is doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
No, it doesn't actually. No.
And it's odd actually. I think that sort of epitomizes it. So I wasn't until I tried it and you tried it. It wasn't really on my mind particularly. It's not a big deal. People haven't been hyping it
because it's not a new product, is it? It's been out for a little while.
Yeah, it's been out since 2018.
And this is obviously the V2 model.
Yep.
And I think, look, am I right in saying I think all they've done is a software update, a sort of bit of a remap, if you like, and a price drop.
Yep.
And that's about it.
Yeah, so I think it's now $799, and the V2 came out in 2018. The original was 2015.
Yes.
So it's we're both wondering why we hadn't really heard of it.
Where's it been?
Where's it been in our lives?
No, quite. In fact, look, we've got one here. Let me bring this up. This is, in case you don't know, this is what it looks like. Which is very tidily made. In fact, look, it's always much more interesting to see the back than the front, isn't it? So
it is for some people, Mike.
Well, it is for me. But actually, the back is a telltale sign on this, because you've got lovely things like balanced XLR outputs, and you've got various digital inputs as well. You've got even a USB audio in, all sorts of things. Ethernet, obviously. Wi-Fi dongle. You can have an optional Bluetooth dongle as well. This thing does everything. Actually, there's really not much it doesn't do. In fact, I'm struggling to think of anything it doesn't do. So it's Rune ready for those of people who are Rune-aholics.
Like you,
like me. And then if you want to listen to things like Spotify, you can. It comes with a really cool app. The app works brilliantly. Actually,
it actually works well, doesn't it?
Stream Magic app, which is Cambridge Audio's. Congratulations, actually, because so many of the apps we use are rubbish. And it's actually super.
So there's no sense of being in the cheap seats and having a crap cheapo app.
No.
With a sort of cheap streamer.
And
it's just as good as anything else, really.
It doesn't. I wouldn't. Oh, how can I put this without being rude? It doesn't feel premium. It's not the weightiest product in the world. It's beautifully finished. It looks really smart. It's got a nice remote control. It's not just one of these horrible sort of standard. Generic things which you get. It's a proper remote. But hey, it's why has it not been on our radar? Really, why has it not been on our radar? Because it's great.
Yes, and there are. I mean, Hi-Fi is full of these products, actually, isn't it? So there've been a lot of things. Actually, we've covered a few on this channel. Some sort of glorious failures, as it were, or things that are much better than people commonly thought, like the Videotone Minimax, for example.
Yes.
A couple of months ago. But there are quite a few little of these bargains around in Hi-Fi, and that's the nice thing, is to try and find them rather than being told what to buy. Just clicking online, going out and hearing it for yourself.
I couldn't agree more. And if this isn't a bargain, then I don't really know what is. Under £800 for a properly class streaming preamp. It's great. It's absolutely great. But it's got a kind of a bit of an unusual twist, hasn't it? Because the DACs which it uses aren't quite what you'd expect, are they?
No, well, if we were doing this in 2006, then
it would have been cool.
It would have been really cool. Or maybe even earlier, like 2003, 2004, it would have been cutting edge. But I don't know if anyone still remembers this brand of DAC called Wolfson, which was an Edinburgh-based company, British silicon company making DACs. Well, the CXN V2 uses the Wolfson 8740.
How do you remember all of this stuff?
I'm a Hi-Fi train spotter. Just in case you were wondering, I'm sure no one else has noticed. So there you go.
Can I just say, if any of our Hi-Fi viewers think about going down the Hi-Fi pub with us, this is what you get. By the way, it's like this all the time. It never changes.
Don't get me started on cantilevers. So
excellent.
Yeah. So basically, it's a sort of, ancient. Well, it's not ancient. That's not true. But it's an old DAC. It's a very sort of one of the first new generation DACs, which did 24192, and it's so old actually that Wolfson were bought out by Cirrus Logic in 2014, I think. So it's actually a Cirrus Logic WM8740 now.
Wow.
But the point is that, and the point that it makes very well, is that you don't have to have a flavour of the month DAC in any digital product for it to sound good. And that's a very good point. But it's often missed, I think.
I asked you earlier, why is it so good? Because it's not, as you say, a flavour of the month DAC. And I think you summed it up because you said, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. And I think that Cambridge Audio have been working with these chips for a while now, haven't they?
Yep.
And clearly they kind of they understand how to get the most out of them, because this little streamer is an absolute cracker. It's a total belter, isn't it? I'm finding difficulty in finding any fault with it at all. For that price range.
Well, I'm just wondering why they don't put it in a in a very fancy case, with a kind of absolute tons of copper and aluminium and and sort of sell it for $5,000, because they'd probably still be able to sell it without much of a redesign. Maybe fancy a power supply or something.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It's so good, and we've heard, I think maybe streamers costing 3 or 4 times the price that don't sound as good as this.
I agree completely.
So,
and I haven't spent too much time trying out the preamp, full disclosure there, but I'm not too worried about that because it just sounds brilliant plugged into my own preamp. Just taking the line out and straight in and using the fixed volume. Sounds amazing.
Well, it's a streamer stroke DAC stroke preamp, and it's only a preamp to the extent that it's got variable outputs, so you don't get a wide range of analog inputs that you can switch between.
Sure.
But the point is, you can drive a power amp directly,
or a pair of active speakers.
Yeah.
I can't help but think something like the AE1s, which we reviewed on a very early riff, would be brilliant with this. And what a wonderful compact system. The Cambridge CXN V2 and a pair of AE1s, and the Acoustic Energies are lovely speakers anyway, and that would sound brilliant.
And the other good thing is that you don't sacrifice anything. It sounds great, it's cheap, but it's not like it's an aesthetic and ergonomic disaster.
No,
it doesn't look plug ugly. It's not something you want to hide, under the rug or something.
Quite.
It's perfectly. I think it weighs about 3.5 kilograms. So we're not talking made from granite, but it's got a pressed steel case and a sort of brushed aluminium fascia. A little display. I think it's a 4.3 inch.
Yeah.
It's big enough, really, isn't it?
Shows you where you are. Shows you your menu. Shows you the album art for whatever you're playing. It's a lovely thing.
Yeah.
What I particularly like about it, because this is a little bit of a bugbear, and you and I, having done a few sort of group tests of streamers and active speakers and all of these things, it's actually really easy to use and set up. It really could not be easier. And in fact, if you are a Roon user, you literally just plug it into your network and it finds it, and away you go. You don't have to do anything else. And I loved that. I thought that was great, because I do get quite frustrated with some of the hit and miss products. Sometimes they work on one day and they won't on another, and other times they take ages to set up. Then they'll lose your network. This is great.
Yes, it's great for lazy people who don't like fiddling around with streamers set up like you, Mike.
Exactly.
I love it, of course. It's one of my hobbies.
I've noticed.
Trying to get a signal from the Wi-Fi dongle of this or that streamer that doesn't work, and I'm very good at controlling my blood pressure under those circumstances as well.
You're very lucky. You're very lucky. I found with this that you sort of plugged it in and it was very easy to use, and the whole of the family could use it, and away you go. There was no, none of the questions of oh my gosh, I can't get any music to work again. Which is my most common retort, I think. So. But no, really impressed. So I've tried this now. I've had this for a week or so, and I've tried it with all sorts of different music.
Yeah.
And it's just never failed to impress me. One of the things which has really got me is the level of detail which it produces. Yeah. So I've been listening to streaming albums, which, I thought I knew fairly well. And all of a sudden you think, I don't think I've really heard that bit before.
Yeah.
And something will kind of come alive in the recording. Yeah. And it's just lovely. It's got...
So when you say streaming albums, you mean Farewell to Kings by Rush?
I've been playing Farewell to Kings by Rush, yes, yeah.
So that's his only album he listens to at the moment.
It's the only album in the world, ever. But no, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. There was on one of the Facebook pages, one of the sort of hi-fi Facebook pages, somebody put a really cool post on. They just bought a Riga Planner 3, and they were asking for some really great sounding, well recorded tracks. So I kind of been listening to some of those on that Facebook page. Yeah. People like Stevie Ray Vaughan and stuff which I probably wouldn't normally listen to.
Achy Breaky Heart?
Yes, that's Stevie Ray Vaughan. Of course it is. Yes. And just really nice to hear other people's take on things. There were a couple of Dire Straits songs out on there which I'd never heard before.
Yeah,
which are quite cool.
Like Sultans of Swing.
Never heard of that before.
That's a really good one from the first album. So, yeah, that's a top tip.
You can get that on Musical Fidelity Sound Lab, I think, can't you? I'm sure they did an original master recording of their first album. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, excellent.
Yeah. So, I mean, in all seriousness, it does sound very good. I think it's, in absolute terms, it's a little bass light, isn't it? It's not quite as chunky low down as it could be, but we are talking about an £800 streamer. But it's very detailed. It's pretty smooth as well.
It's lovely.
The treble isn't quite as silky as real high-end digital, but again, it's not bad at all, is it?
I'm so impressed with it. I really am impressed with it.
And, again, in absolute terms, a little slightly more of a two-dimensional sound compared to, your kind of 15 grand DCS.
Which you'd expect, wouldn't you?
Of course,
but and I don't think that's really the point, though. No. I think the point is, if you wanted to get into streaming, this is a fantastic way to do it. Yeah. You will not be disappointed. Yeah. It'll be the best £799 you spend.
Yes, I think it's a streaming version of a Riga Planner 3, isn't it?
That's a really good point. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so, it's very much like that.
Yeah, if you want to get into vinyl, then you want an easy to use, easy to set up, no nonsense, just get in and do the job thing that just delivers in performance terms, then the Riga Planner 3, as we found out in one of our earlier videos last year, it just does that exactly, doesn't it?
Yes.
And the Cambridge Audio is the same,
yes.
I think.
They must be pulling their hair out, because this project's been going since 2015.
Yeah.
They must be thinking, why does nobody think this is kind of the best value bit of kit since sliced bread?
Yeah.
And as you say, once in a blue moon you come across a hi-fi product which is a genuine gem, totally underrated, totally undiscovered. This little player really hides its light under a bushel.
It does,
doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And it's fabulous, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed listening to this player. I think it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
So super cool, and I think there's heritage here, isn't there? Because Cambridge did the DAC Magic.
Yes.
Back in the day, and I think it was sold somewhere like Richer Sounds.
Yeah.
Super cheap.
£99, I think the first one, wasn't it?
It sounded great, didn't it?
Yeah.
So this is DAC Magic for this century, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, yes. It's that, or the sort of as it were, the cousin of the original DAC Magic was the CD4 SE CD player, which was also done by John Westlake at the time, and that was around 250 quid or something in the early 90s, and it was an absolutely cracking sounding CD player, and that's almost the kind of spiritual, this is almost a spiritual successor of this.
Yeah.
My brother had a CD4 SE, and he's hung on to it till it died, which is, it lasted quite a long time, for Robin. You know, he normally kills hi-fi pretty quickly, but that was a great CD player, very musical, and the CXN V2 I think is the same kind of thing, isn't it?
It's out of the mold, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely out of the mold, and I love the fact they're getting the most out of those the Wolfson DACs.
Yeah,
that's terrific. And you know the architecture and
the Rover V8 of DACs. Isn't
it really is, yes. Yeah. And look. You know, TVR did some great things with the Rover V8. This is a TVR Rover V8 DAC, isn't it? That's the analogy, isn't it? So let's hope it doesn't break down. Every
I was going to say it's going to be a lot more reliable than a TVR.
It really is,
and much safer too.
yes, I'm sure you're right.
Yeah.
But look, there we are. I've loved it. I think it's brilliant. Certainly comes with my recommendation. Yeah. Let's do a Hi-Fi Riffometer on it. We haven't done one of those for a while. Yeah.
So the only criticism, and this is not one that I necessarily agree with, but if in the interests of balance, it doesn't have MQA playback, MQA functionality, and apparently there are no plans for it. A lot of people will be saying, well, so what? Probably including myself. But you know, it means something to some people with Tidal, doesn't it?
True.
So I'm gonna. That's one sort of downside. But I can't really think of anything else to fault it, so I'm going to give it a 9.
Yeah, well, I mean, I honestly struggle to find anything to fault it. For £799, I can't see any reason not to give it a 10.
Okay,
I really can't. I think it's one of the absolute steals, hi-fi bargains out there to be had. And I think, you know, if you have a chance, listen to it. So this is absolutely fabulous. So there we are. Look, you heard it here first. So, this is it.
Mike's favourite product ever, basically.
Well, I'm very, very impressed by it. And congratulations to Cambridge Audio.
We haven't noticed
for keeping it a complete secret for as long as they have. So maybe you know they need to shine their light a little bit more from under their bushel.
Yes. Well, I think you know I think that actually there's from what I've heard, you know, on the grapevine, there are things are afoot at Cambridge Audio, and there's going to be quite a lot of action this year. And you know, it might be a bit more high profile in 2023.
You heard it here first.
Absolutely.
And on that note, no pun intended, thank you very much indeed for watching this episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff, and we will see you at the next one. Thanks a million. Bye. Bye.